Takulandirani ku AMTV Malawi kuchimake kwa nkhani zenizeni. Ngati nkhani imeneyo kuno kulibe, dziwani kuti nkhani imeneyo ndi yabodza.
60 billion towards maize purchases. And Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, in order to provide easy and timely access to maize markets for all the farmers, the 2025-26 financial year's budget has allocated 60 billion Malawi kwacha towards maize purchases. Madam Speaker, as if this is not enough, Madam Speaker, this budget has also provided 53 billion that has been allocated to ADMAC to revamp its operations. Madam Speaker, affordable inputs program. Madam Speaker, I wish to inform this August House that the reforms on AIP program are ongoing. The government's focus is enhancing production for the attainment of household and national food sufficiency and increasing disposable income for all Malawians. Irrigation, Madam Speaker, to achieve this, various initiatives such as AIP, mega farms, irrigation and farm input loans being administered by NIRT are working in complementarity for this purpose. Madam Speaker, in light of this, the 2025-26 financial year's budget for AIP has been pegged at 131.6 billion. Grants to other general government units. Madam Speaker, grants to other government units are estimated at 543.1 billion. The composition of this includes the following, Madam Speaker: 129.7 billion transferred to Malawi Revenue Authority, 101.1 billion for Lords Funds Administration, 8 billion for Lords Authority, and 268.3 billion for subvented organizations, and 36 billion for tertiary education students' loans. Elections. Madam Speaker, this budget has also made allocations to elections. Madam Speaker, another notable allocation in the 2025-26 financial year amounting to 162.9 billion has gone to the Malawi Electoral Commission to enable them manage the forthcoming tripartite general elections. These resources are specifically for polling and all the remaining activities in the electoral process. Madam Speaker, the allocation represents an increase of 207% from the 2024-25 revised provision of 53.1 billion. 2025-26 key sector allocations and development projects. Madam Speaker, this year's budget is very unique in the sense that it has prioritized allocations that will enable us to address the challenges of fuel, fertilizer, forex, and food, the 4 Fs. It is therefore, Madam Speaker, for this reason that the government is pursuing procurement of fertilizer and fuel through the government-to-government arrangement, which is G2G, over and above the open tender system. This will also ensure that procurement of these strategic commodities is streamlined. In addition to this, Madam Speaker, government is working towards having a fertilizer manufacturing plant within borders of this country to ensure that prices of fertilizer are reduced significantly. Madam Speaker, government is also advocating the use of organic fertilizers that are locally manufactured and are cost-effective. Madam Speaker, to address food challenges, government is focusing on production, and you will note shortly in my presentation that substantial amount of resources have been allocated towards irrigation development so that the country moves away from over-dependence on rain-fed agriculture. Irrigation, Madam Speaker, is therefore very critical to stabilizing maize yields, reducing food shortages, and protecting smallholder farmers from economic shocks. Madam Speaker, the expectation is that once the dividends of our focus on production have begun bearing fruits, the foreign exchange challenges will be a thing of the past. This, Madam Speaker, is because through production, the country will attain food self-sufficiency and have access for exports, and the proceeds from the mining and tourism industry, Madam Speaker, will also as well generate much-needed foreign exchange for the stabilization of our economy. Madam Speaker, recovering, diversifying, and protecting the economy, which is the RDP, remains our focus in the 2025-26 financial year. In order for our economy to recover, government has prioritized production through strategic investments in agriculture, tourism, and mining, and details of which I will be highlighting below. Madam Speaker, the government is diversifying the economy by not only concentrating on agriculture alone, but other strategic sectors that have the potential to turn around the fortunes of this country, like the mining and tourism. Madam Speaker, even within the agriculture, the focus is on irrigation farming to reduce overdependence on land-fed agriculture, large-scale fish production under the agriculture mega farms, and extensive rice production through the Ntola irrigation scheme. This is over and above the traditional maize and tobacco production that has been scaled up. Madam Speaker, I wish to underscore that it is the responsibility of every Malawian to ensure that our economy is protected. As noble citizens, we need to jealously safeguard our natural resources and whatever is produced so that they benefit the country at large. For instance, Madam Speaker, we need to curb smuggling and illegal cross-border trade and ensure that fair trade practices are conducted countrywide. Agriculture, tourism, mining, and manufacturing. Madam Speaker, in order to stimulate economic growth through job creation, reduce the dependency on imports, increase the export opportunities, and other resultant multiplier effects to the economy, government has deliberately allocated substantial resources to a number of productive sectors, including agriculture, irrigation, tourism, mining, and trade. Agriculture sector and irrigation development. Madam Speaker, cognizance of the significant contribution of agriculture to the socio-economic growth and development of this country, the sector has been allocated a total of 693.3 billion, representing 9% of the total budget. Madam Speaker, some of the notable allocations under this sector include 99.5 billion for irrigation development, 38.3 billion for mega farms, 53.1 billion for animal, 60 billion for maize purchases, 131.6 billion for affordable input program, and 70 billion for farm input loan program administered by NIF. Madam Speaker, to mitigate the impact of El Nino-induced dry spells and ensure food security, the government has allocated 99.5 billion for irrigation development, with land-fed agriculture dominating food production, and irrigation is critical to stabilizing maize yields, reducing food shortages, and protecting smallholder farmers from economic shocks. Madam Speaker, the government aims to maximize utilization of 56,113 hectares of irrigable land, targeting a maize yield of about 330,000 metric tons. The following are some of the key activities to be undertaken: developing 6,000 hectares of new irrigation infrastructure, rehabilitating 9,000 hectares of irrigable land, and supporting farm groups covering 46,706 hectares. Madam Speaker, regarding development projects, government has prioritized the following, aimed at enhancing productivity and commercialization. Agricultural commercialization project with an allocation of 143.5 billion, Chile Valley Transformation Project has 71.9 billion, This is aimed at improving irrigation infrastructure and optimizing land use. Program for rural irrigation development has been provided 30.9 billion, and 30.1 billion is for transformation, agricultural production and transformation, and entrepreneurship. A provision of 6.8 billion has been made for agricultural infrastructure and youth in agribusiness project, which focuses on empowering young farmers. For the livestock infrastructure development for sustainable animal health, production and marketing project, 2.5 billion is provided to improve veterinary services and enhance livestock productivity. Agriculture machinery production being implemented by the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences, and promotion of mechanized farm operations through hiring centers in Malawi with a provision of 500 million kwacha. Tourism sector. Madam Speaker, tourism remains one of Malawi's fastest growing service sectors. With the potential to drive economic growth, job creation, and foreign exchange earnings to fully harness this potential, government is committed to creating conducive environment that will enable the sector to thrive and meaningfully contribute to the national development. Madam Speaker, in the 24-25-26 financial year, government has allocated 13.9 billion compared to the 4.8 billion in the 24-25 budget, representing 192% increase to boost the sector. Of this allocation, 4.2 billion is earmarked for tourism promotion and development, 3.7 billion for wildlife management and conservation, and 6 billion for the implementation of various development projects aimed at enhancing Malawi's tourism potential. Madam Speaker, some of the strategic focus areas for the sector in the 2025-26 financial year include development of eco-lodges and support infrastructure in Kasungu National Park, development of public beaches across the shores of Lake Malawi, development of access roads to tourist resort areas, capacity building for front staff and tourism industry players, completion of the Malawi Institute of Tourism in Mzuzu campus, safeguarding of the wildlife in all protected areas, domestic, regional, and international tourism promotion, automation of revenue collection, hosting of Takulandra and Malawi International Expo, and strengthening the legal framework and tourism institutional capacity. The mining sector. Mining is a key priority for the government due to its vast potential to create employment opportunities, generate foreign exchange earnings, and drive economic growth and development. The government is committed to unlocking the full potential of this sector to ensure its meaningful contribution towards Malawi's transformation. Madam Speaker, in the 25-26 financial year, a total of 14.2 billion has been allocated under this sector from 5.5 billion that was allocated in the 24-25 financial year, representing a 160% increase. Specifically, Madam Speaker, 5.1 billion has been earmarked for mining regulatory authority, and 4 billion for the establishment of the mining company, 4.1 billion for mining and geological services, and 1 billion for the mineral laboratory. Madam Speaker, through the Malawi Mining Investment Company, a nationwide survey to identify and assess gold mining sites will be undertaken. This initiative will inform strategic investments in gold mining, buying and selling, thereby ensuring that all gold produced in Malawi enters the formal market for the benefits of the nation. Madam Speaker, it is against this background that Malawi is losing significant revenue through illegal gold trade. Madam Speaker, the government is implementing programs and projects to strengthen the mining sector and maximize its economic potential. And these includes, number one, reviewing gemstone export procedures to enhance transparency and accountability in management of foreign exchange earnings from gemstones, facilitating the commencement of large-scale mining projects, strengthening enforcement and inspections to ensure compliance with mining regulations, conducting geological mapping to identify more potential mineral deposits of high value, conducting mineral processing research and analytical laboratory services to improve mineral value addition, and finally carrying out mineral or mining investment promotion to attract investors and stimulate sector growth, transport, public waste, and ICT infrastructure sector. Madam Speaker, in the 2025-26 financial year, the transport and ICT infrastructure sector has been allocated resources amounting to 422.3 billion. These resources have been allocated to Ministry of Transport and Public Works, Lords Fund Administration, Ministry of Information and Digitalization for their routine operations and implementation of development projects. Some of the notable projects, Madam Speaker, under this sector include, under Transport and Public Works, reconstruction and rehabilitation of Limbe-Bangula Railway section, rehabilitation of government offices at Capitol Hill, completion of the construction of Likoma Port, development of Central Materials Laboratory, and modernization of Kamuzu International Airport. Madam Speaker, you may wish to note that out of the 422.3 billion under the transport and ICT infrastructure sector, 144.8 billion has been earmarked for the roads subsector for implementation for various projects. And some of the roads, Madam Speaker, are the following. And I really ask for the attention of the general public. This budget is financing the following roads. Number one, Lumpi Nyika Teno Fuhewe Road, Chitipa Ilomba Road, Lumpi Nyika Chitipa Road, Kalonga Songwe Rehabilitation Project, Kacheche Bwengu Chiweta Road, Njagwa Pwezi Livingstonia Road, Jenda Imbangweni Edingeni Road, Nzimba Nzalangwe Road, Kia Junction Kasungu Jenda Nzimba Road, Dezaboma Loop Road, Njeu Tsangano Mwanza Road, Capacity Improvement of Lilongwe City Roads, Kapadenga Benga Dwangwa Road, Sante Mkota Gabiri Road, Chimwanza Nambuma Gasia Road, Nsulira Nkota Road, Mtuntama Wimbe Chamama Road, Nshisi Malumo Road, Ngoma Mayani Deza Road, Nsundwe Majiga Gasia Road, upgrading of Kasungu Municipality Roads, Nguruyana Wambe Kasungu National Park Road, Rintibe Robi Road, Matutu Bua Nambuma Road, Nsibe Liwonde Zomba Road, Chikwawa Chapananga Mwanza Road, which is Sidiki Mia Road, Chikwawa Tabwa Fatima Road, which is Chaguamba Highway, Mangoji Maganjira Road, Cholo Tegera ni Muona Bangura Road, Manki Bekep Magrie Road, Lilangwe na Matunu Machinga Road, and Chiringa Muroza Road. Madam Speaker, under Information and Digitalization, we are going to do the last mile rural area connectivity project, digital Malawi project, digital migration project, NAS enhancement project, education and skills development sector. Madam Speaker, education and skills development serve as a catalyst in the socio-economic growth and transformation of any country due to the resultant increased productivity, the higher earning potential, and reduced social inequalities among the population. In recognition of this, Madam Speaker, the government will continue to provide quality, relevant, and equitable education to the people of Malawi. Madam Speaker, in the 2025-26 financial year, government has allocated 1.3 trillion to the education sector and skills development sector, representing 16.6% of the total expenditure. These resources are earmarked for basic and secondary education, higher education, and various projects. And some notable allocations, Madam Speaker, include the following. Number one, Madam Speaker, 36 billion for higher education students' loans and upkeep allowances. 186.7 billion for the universities and other subvented organizations within the sector. 363.6 billion to the ministries of basic and secondary education and higher education. And 26.3 billion to the education sector within the local councils. Madam Speaker, with regard to infrastructure development, government is implementing a number of projects in the education sector, including construction of 34 secondary schools of excellence, expansion and rehabilitation of the University of Malawi, construction of Mzuzu University Library, construction of Inkosimberwa University, equity with quality and learning at secondary, Malawi Education Reform Project, schools for vibrant economy, construction of inclusive education resource center, construction of Lulanga Secondary School, construction of teachers' houses, Gwanda Jaguamba Center of Excellence, and construction of science laboratories and laboratory. Health and population sector. Madam Speaker, before I come to health and population sector, let me mention, Madam Speaker, that when the President attended the PIM function, he did promise about the John Chilembwe schools of excellence. This budget, Madam Speaker, has taken care of that school. Health and population sector. Madam Speaker, the importance of investing in health for the enhanced productivity and well-being of the country's citizens cannot be overemphasized. In this regard, Madam Speaker, the 2025-26 financial year's budget has allocated 741.05 billion, representing 9.2% of the total national budget towards health and population sector. Madam Speaker, the following are some of the key projects to be implemented: completion of the cancer center, construction of Mponela Community Hospital, construction of 55 health posts, the Malawi Emergency Project to protect essential health services and contribution to the health sector joint fund, water and sanitation. Madam Speaker, access to clean water and sanitation is essential for human health, dignity and well-being of the citizen. Water and sanitation is therefore one of the priority areas of the government and a critical component of sustainable development and human capital development. In the water and sanitation sector, Madam Speaker, some of the priority projects include Kalonga Town Water Supply, the water supply centers for Tondwe, Migowi, Ulongwe, Zalewa, Fatima and Makanjira, rehabilitation and expansion of Dowa, Dwangwa, Salima, Nkhotakota, Nchisi, Chewa and Dedza schemes, and the groundwater extraction for rural piped water development program. The Lumbi Water Sanitation Services Improvement Project, Lilongwe Water and Sanitation Project, National Water and Sanitation Project, improvement of water supply services in Dowa, Kolongo Multipurpose Dam for Mponela Town, Ngadabe Town Supply, Water Supply and Sanitation Project, Salima Lilongwe Water Project, Makanjira Water Supply Scheme, and upgrading, rehabilitation and extension of Mchalo Water Supply Project. Environmental and climate change management. Madam Speaker, effective management of environment and climate change is critical for mitigation climate risks, conserving natural resources and ensuring a sustainable future. In this regard, Madam Speaker, government has allocated 28.4 billion to support environmental protection, climate resilience and sustainable resource management, to enhance climate action and environmental conservation. The government to implement the following reforms: develop the climate change bill to establish a legal framework for climate governance, review the national environmental policy, build the capacity of key stakeholders on accessing the Climate Change Adaptation Fund and Green Climate Fund, revise the national waste management strategy, and strengthen implementation of the National Cleanup Campaign, promote cross-sectoral coordination among stakeholders for harmonization of change interventions, develop restoration plans for degraded ecosystems in the country. Climate change management, Madam Speaker, in line with Malawi 2063, the government continues to prioritize environmental sustainability, and in an effort to achieve this, Madam Speaker, the government has developed a draft Article 6 framework to guide and regulate the implementation of carbon trading initiatives in the country. This framework will ensure that the country achieves its ambition targets under the nationally determined contributions (NDC) as stipulated in the Paris Agreement global goals that will see the Malawi projects have in various sectors. Madam Speaker, consequently, 47 carbon developers have been registered to embark on the process of developing carbon projects to sell carbon credits in various sectors, including renewable energy, renewable agriculture, water management, manufacturing, construction, and sustainable forestry management. Madam Speaker, the current 6 of the projects have been authorized to allow these investors to proceed with implementation of the carbon projects in the country. It is projected that these projects, Madam Speaker, will generate 5.9 million carbon credits after successful implementation and verification, which is expected to translate to around 60 million USD. Madam Speaker, due to the economic challenges the country is facing, government is implementing the Biodiversity Financing Initiative, and this initiative will unlock and identify financial solutions from all sources, including the private sector, to increase the amount of resources available for funding biodiversity conservation. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that the project has managed to develop a biodiversity financing plan which has identified 11 innovative solutions for funding biodiversity conservation, including payment for ecosystems services, carbon trade for biodiversity conservation, and mainstreaming of biodiversity in national budget. Madam Speaker, the August House may wish to note that during the 2024-25 financial year, the nation received funds in excess of $9.5 million realized from carbon trading on credits that were generated from projects that were implemented in the previous year. Energy sector. Madam Speaker, energy is a vital component of the country's economic growth and socio-economic development. With regard to development projects, Madam Speaker, some of the projects that the sector will implement in the 2025-26 financial year include the following: development of Mpatamanga hydropower, Malawi electricity access project, Malawi Mozambique interconnector, battery energy storage system at Kanengo substation, and accelerating sustainable and clean energy access transformation asset. Madam Speaker, fuel is another strategic commodity required to drive the economy. In view of this, the government is strengthening the fuel procurement through the government-to-government arrangement to ensure a stable and sustainable fuel supply to reduce pressure on foreign exchange resources by streamlining transactions, trade and industry development. Madam Speaker, the government recognizes the importance of trade and industry development in driving economic growth and job creation. In the 2025-26 financial year, 14 billion has been allocated to the Ministry of Trade and Industry to promote industrialization, support small and medium enterprises, and expand export base markets. Madam Speaker, to combat illegal trade, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, in collaboration with the Malawi Revenue Authority, Malawi Police Service, and the Malawi Bureau of Standards, will launch a nationwide anti-smuggling initiative. Additionally, Madam Speaker, business inspections will be intensified to ensure fair trade and expand market access. Madam Speaker, to enhance trade and industrial development, the government will implement the following initiatives: develop special economic zones in Blantyre, Lilongwe, and Nzuzu to boost industrial growth, train and register 100 cooperatives, equipping them to diversify into high-value sectors such as mining, construct value addition centers in Kasungu and Kalonga, and expand export markets through leveraging on existing market protocols for soy and groundnuts by securing new agreements for macadamia nuts. Youth and sports. Madam Speaker, the future of Malawi is in the youth. As such, this budget has also prioritized youth and sports development as a means of unlocking their potential and fostering economic growth in the 2025-26 financial year, and 30.9 billion has been allocated to advance this agenda. Madam Speaker, to promote innovation and creativity. Madam Speaker, I need the August House attention on this one. To promote innovation and creativity among the young people, the government of Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, through this budget, has allocated 2 billion to capitalize the Youth Innovation Fund to support young entrepreneurs and innovators. It is expected, Madam Speaker, that this provision will progressively be increased in the subsequent financial years to allow more youths to access the fund. In addition, Madam Speaker, I am also pleased to announce to this August House that government has increased the monthly stipend for graduate internship from 80,000 to 150,000. Madam Speaker, in addition to what I have talked about innovation fund, I want to repeat that government has increased the monthly stipend for graduate internship program from 80,000 to 150,000. Madam Speaker, with regard to development projects, some notable ones include construction of National Indoor Sports Complex, reconstruction of Kamuzu Institute for Sports, reconstruction of BAT Stadium, construction of Achinyamata Center, construction of Youth Center in Nzuzu, and the National Youth Service. Homeland Security. Madam Speaker, government through the Ministry of Homeland Security and all the security agencies will continue to ensure safety and security of the country and all its citizens' life and property. In the 2025-26 financial year, Madam Speaker, the following projects will be undertaken: construction of new Blantyre Police Station, construction of new premises of C Division of Malawi Police Service, development of Homeland Security Management Information System, establishment of forensic laboratory for the Malawi Police Service, and migration of police communication systems from analog to digital platform, and rehabilitation of police staff houses. Program for self-constructed and rehabilitation of prison cells and staff houses, revitalization of industrial workshops in prisons and sewerage ponds in prisons, lands and housing sector. Madam Speaker, in the 2025-26 financial year, the lands and housing sector has been provided with resources amounting to 39.1 billion towards land management and administration and housing services to the general public. This is aimed at ensuring orderly physical development across the country and improving access to housing and public infrastructure. Madam Speaker, in the 2025-26 budget, the sector will undertake the following development projects: construction of 10,000 security houses, construction of houses for people with albinism, National Land Reform Rollout Program, and public land infrastructure development in cities. Gender, community development, and social welfare. Madam Speaker, government continues to promote gender equality, community development, and social welfare through programs and policies that address the needs of general public, populations, and uphold social justice. In the 2025-26 financial year, the Ministry of Gender will implement the following projects and interventions: investing in early years for growth and productivity in Malawi, social cash transfer program, construction of early childhood centers, construction of library and lecture theatre at Magomero College, develop foster care guidelines and strengthen child protection services, support persons with disability through the Disability Trust Fund and vocational training programs, and promote elderly care services. Local councils. Madam Speaker, it is government's policy to strengthen physical decentralization so that local councils deliver public services that are tailored to the local needs in a transparent and equitable manner. And in this regard, Madam Speaker, the following are the key resource allocations highlights in the local councils: 33.5 billion for the procurement of drugs in the councils, 188.5 billion under Malawi Social Support Resilient Livelihoods, 43.8 billion under governance to enable service delivery, 42.5 billion under the Constituency Development Fund, translating to 220 million per constituency, 35 billion for the construction of city roads, 17 billion for the rehabilitation of district hospitals, 7.6 billion for the District Development Fund, 2.3 billion for the construction of water structures under the Water Resources Fund, and 1 billion for Infrastructure Development Fund. revenue policy and administrative measures for the 2025-26 fiscal year budget. Madam Speaker, the revenue policy and administrative measures I am about to announce today have been carefully formulated to account for the current social and economic landscape while aligning with the government's strategic focus on sectors of the agriculture, tourism, mining and manufacturing, commonly known as the ATM strategy. But before I delve deep into the specific measures, allow me, Madam Speaker, to make two key pronouncements. Firstly, Madam Speaker, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to all individuals and institutions that actively participated and provided invaluable insights during the pre-budget consultation meetings held across the country. Their feedback and suggestions remain instrumental in improving our tax system. And secondly, Madam Speaker, I wish to clarify that there is no import duty or excise duty on mobile phones. Only VAT is payable. And for businesses registered for VAT purposes, what they remit to the Malawi Revenue Authority is the difference between import VAT and sales VAT in some instances. They receive VAT refund when applicable. Now let me move to the tax and non-tax policy measures for the next fiscal year. Madam Speaker, in a departure from the tradition, the customs and excise tax measures I announced today will take effect from 1st April 2025 rather than at midnight tonight, as has been the case previously. This adjustment is intended to provide businesses and importers with ample time to factor in these changes when making key financial and operational decisions. Similarly, Madam Speaker, as per established practice, the income tax, value-added tax, and administrative measures I am presenting now will come into force on 1st April 2025, contingent upon the passage of the relevant bills by this August House and the subsequent assent by His Excellency the President. Customs and excise measures. Madam Speaker, allow me to begin with a measure directly affecting your office, Madam Speaker. Recognizing that the conditions of service for the Speaker, Deputy Speakers, and the Leader of the Opposition provide for duty-free clearance of 3 motor vehicles, the government is amending the relevant Customs Procedures Code, CPC, to formally accommodate this provision. Since these positions are held by members of Parliament who are already entitled to duty-free clearance of 2 motor vehicles, this amendment will grant an additional exemption, bringing the total number of motor vehicles to be cleared duty-free by individuals occupying that office to 3. Madam Speaker, in alignment with the ATM strategy, particularly within the tourism sector, the government is implementing a reduction in the applicable import duty excise tax on all materials imported for the construction of amusement parks. To facilitate this initiative, Madam Speaker, the relevant Customs Procedure Code will be amended accordingly. These measures aim to stimulate investment in the sector, enhance tourism infrastructure, and drive economic growth. Continuing with the promotion of the ATM strategy, this time for the agriculture sector, Madam Speaker, the government is amending the Customs Procedure Code for duty-free clearance of various irrigation sector items to include pump engine of any size. Madam Speaker, continuing with the tax measures, the government has observed that in some instances, hybrid electric vehicles attract a higher excise rate than their petrol or diesel counterparts. To promote the adoption of fuel-efficient hybrid vehicles, the government is implementing a significant reduction in excise tax rates as follows. For hybrid vehicles less than 8 years old, the excise tax will be reduced from 45% to 0%. For hybrid vehicles between 8 and 12 years old, the excise duty will be lowered from 70% to 35%. For hybrid vehicles older than 12 years, the excise tax will be reduced from 100% to 60%. These measures reinforce the government's commitment to environmental sustainability by encouraging cleaner and more energy-efficient transportation. Madam Speaker, while many of the measures outlined thus far reduce government revenue, we must also implement revenue-generating measures to sustain domestic revenue collection accordingly. Madam Speaker, the government is introducing a 25% import duty on motor vehicle engines classified under tariff headings 84.07 and 84.08, which encompass the engines for motor vehicles, locomotives, marine vessels, and tractors. However, I wish to clarify here that while complete units such as locomotives, marine vessels, and tractors are imported duty-free, this adjustment applies to engines imported separately. The objective is to ensure that while actual vehicles continue to benefit from duty exemptions, import duties are levied on replacement engines to prevent potential abuse of these concessions. Madam Speaker, we have observed a significant rise in the use of electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes. The World Health Organization has emphasized that both traditional tobacco products and e-cigarettes pose health risks, with the safest approach being complete avoidance of particular concern is an increased prevalence of e-cigarettes use among children and adolescents. Accordingly, to discourage the use of e-cigarettes, just as we do with tobacco products, the government is increasing import duty on e-cigarettes and similar personal electric vaporizing devices classified under tariff subheading 8543.40.00 from 10% to 30% under column 5 and from 5% to 25% under column 6 of the Customs Exercise Tariff Order. Madam Speaker, in the same vein, Madam Speaker, the government is introducing an excise duty of 200% on electronic cigarettes and other smoking-related products classified under tariff subheading 4545.40.00 and 9614.00.00. These measures to keep accessibility and deter usage, particularly among young people, while reinforcing public health priorities. Madam Speaker, in line with environmental conservation efforts, the excise tax on plastic carrying bags with handles will increase from 10% to 250%, thereby encouraging the adoption of eco-friendly paper bags. Madam Speaker, the government is amending Customs Procedure Code 405, which is used for duty-free clearance of health-related imports, to include title reading goods for the use of hospitals, nursing homes, clinics, surgeries, and dispensaries, as approved by the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Health and Part C of this CPC, which covered essential goods for COVID-19 prevention, treatment, and management, will be removed following the World Health Organization's declaration that COVID-19 is no longer a global health emergency. Madam Speaker, regarding plastic packaging bags under tariff subheading 6305.33.00, several adjustments have been made. Firstly, tariffs will be split into 6305.33.10 for cereal packaging bags and 6305.33.90 for cement packaging bags, thereby allowing Malawi Bureau of Standards to ensure that only food packaging materials undergo necessary safety tests. Secondly, the PP woven cement bags under tariff subheading 6305.33.00 will be removed from the industrial rebate scheme for the cement and allied products manufacturing industry, as they are now locally produced and are available duty-free within SADC and commercial regions. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, the 10% surcharge on tariff subheading 4819.40.10, which covers paper cement bags, will be removed, as it was erroneously introduced on this tariff subheading, while a 10% surcharge will be imposed on PP woven bags for cereals, grains, and cement under tariff subheadings 6305.33.1 and 6305.33.90. These measures are designed to safeguard the local packaging industry by slightly increasing the cost of imported alternatives. Madam Speaker, lastly, on the customs and excise tax, the government will increase the customs agency bond under form number 123 from 1.5 million to 2 million. This adjustment is necessary as the bond was last revised in 2013, and an increase is warranted to account for inflation and changing economic conditions. This measure aims to strengthen compliance, enhance revenue security, and align with current fiscal realities. Value-added tax measures. Madam Speaker, one of the food that have become a necessity for most Malawians is bread or buns and confectionaries. Madam Speaker, as you are aware, the government does not impose value-added tax on most basic commodities to ensure affordability for consumers. In line with this policy, Madam Speaker, government is from today removing VAT on bread and buns and confectionaries to ease the financial burden on households, to promote affordable access to essential food items, and support local bakeries and broader food industry. Madam Speaker, I want to make an emphasis on this one. Starting from today, because we have removed the VAT on bread, buns, and confectionaries, prices of such commodities should now go down. Income tax measures. Madam Speaker, as you are aware, the Priority Industry Scheme provides qualifying companies with a tax holiday of up to 10 years and duty-free importation of capital items, serving as a key incentive to stimulate investment and drive economic growth. However, concerns have been raised regarding unclear eligibility criteria and the inclusion of other critical sectors that could significantly benefiting from these incentives. In response, Madam Speaker, the government is introducing mega farms as a priority sector and undertaking a comprehensive review of the Priority Industry Scheme regulations. This reform aims to enhance transparency, streamline eligibility criteria, and ensure broader access to these incentives. This initiative aligns with the ATM strategy, and particularly in the agriculture sector, and is designed to encourage greater participation in priority industries while driving sustainable economic development. Madam Speaker, as I announced the good news of removal of VAT on the bread, I would like also to make mention here, Madam Speaker, that we have also done similarly to second-hand clothes to make sure that they are affordable. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, you will have noticed that government is introducing various incentives, especially targeting the ATM sectors. With these types of incentives, Madam Speaker, it is evident that the ATM strategy has undeniably taken off. And however, Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to urge the financial sector, particularly lending institutions, to step forward and complement this initiative by offering specialized lending products or facilities tailored to support the ATM strategy. It is deeply concerning, Madam Speaker, that banks, institutions that directly benefiting from farmers, agro-processors, and other players in the ATM sectors continue to impose the same stringent and exorbitant lending conditions as they do on other industries. This approach stifles growth and undermines the government's effort to transform these sectors as an incentive to the banks. Madam Speaker, the government is exploring incentives to benefit financial institutions that develop tailored financing solutions in supporting the ATM strategy. In the same spirit, Madam Speaker, Government is reducing the corporate income tax rate for companies incorporated outside Malawi from 35 to 30% to align with the treatment of locally incorporated companies and international best practices, thereby promoting an undiscriminatory business environment. Madam Speaker, government is also amending the marginal note to Section 127A of the Taxation Act from transfer to defraud and artificial transactions to transfer pricing and other arrangements between related parties to better reflect the section's intent. Lastly, on the income tax measures, Madam Speaker, government is introducing various offences related to tax systems management. This measure is intended to enhance tax compliance, curb illicit trade, and safeguard government revenue. Non-tax revenue. Madam Speaker, one of the most lucrative yet largely untapped sectors in terms of taxation is artisanal and small-scale mining. This sector is primarily made up of individuals and small groups engaging in mining activities using basic tools and minimal technology, often operating outside formal regulatory frameworks. To address this, Madam Speaker, the government, through the Mining Authority and other relevant stakeholders, is actively developing strategies to formalize the sector. A key initiative is to encourage the small-scale miners to form associations which will facilitate licensing, regulation, and compliance by bringing these miners into the formal economy. They will be able to contribute their fair share to government revenues through the payment of appropriate fees, levies, and taxes, thereby broadening revenue base. Madam Speaker, as part of government's commitment to digitalization, significant progress has been made in payment systems. Starting in the next fiscal year, most government payments will be made via mobile money or online platforms. Madam Speaker, as I conclude on the tax and non-tax measures, I wish to emphasize that while election years often witness the removal of taxes or the introduction of generous incentives, such as short-term measures, can undermine the long-term stability of our tax system. As you may have noted, Madam Speaker, this government has taken a responsible and pragmatic approach, avoiding short-sighted decisions and instead implementing only those measures that are beneficial to the nation in both the short and long term. These reforms are designed to strengthen revenue generation, promote economic growth, and ensure fiscal discipline. I therefore call upon all honourable members of this august House to support these critical tax measures as they are fundamental to the continued progress and prosperity of our nation. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, as I am winding up, I wish to inform this august House and all Malawians that government is optimistic that despite all the challenges that have been encountered, the economy will surely get back on the recovery trajectory. The dividends of our focus on enhancing production through strategic investments in agriculture, tourism, and mining will soon materialize. Madam Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank our development partners, non-governmental organizations, civil society, faith-based organizations, the business community, professional bodies, the youth, and all the stakeholders for their unwavering support in the implementation of all the government programs. Madam Speaker, in a special way, let me thank all the officials from my ministry for their tireless efforts and invaluable contributions in coming up with this budget. Madam Speaker, I wish to urge my fellow honourable members to constructively deliberate on this budget. Madam Speaker, in the spirit of one Malawi, one people and one nation, I call upon Malawians together to ensure the attainment of our development aspirations in the spirit of one Malawi, one people and one nation. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister of Finance. Honorable members on my right, order please. Order on my right. Order please. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Finance. I'm seeing Honorable Member for Zomba Jangalume.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for recognizing the people of Zomba Jangalume. Madam Speaker, I'm standing on Standing Order 73 to clarify on the matter which happened yesterday. Madam Speaker, there were some videos that were shown in this house, and in one of those videos, I happened to appear in those video clips, and it was alleged that I connived with the guy who deflated tires for my fellow two honorable members from Zomba. So I would like to distance myself from that allegation. I've never done it. I cannot do it, and I will never do it. And Madam Speaker, I don't know the person who did that. And there's this golden rule. There's this golden rule in this life, that do to others what you'd want them to do to you. That's Matthew 7, verse 23. Madam Speaker, if you plant evil, you're going to harvest evil. So I know all these principles. There is no way I can do such a thing. So I wanted to clarify that on Standing Order 73. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Zomba Jangalume. Honorable members, before I adjourn the House, I have a few announcements to make. Honorable members, can I have order on my right, please? Firstly, I wish to communicate on the distribution of the budget documents. I wish to inform the House that the budget documents, including the budget statement delivered graciously by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, will be made available to all members electronically soon after I adjourn the House. Secondly, I have a communication on cluster committees. Now that the budget estimates for 2025-2026 have been presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, the House will break into cluster committees for a period of 10 working days to scrutinize the budget estimates in committees in accordance with Standing Order 1372. This will be done from Tuesday, 4th of March to Friday, 14th March 2025. The cluster meetings will be held here at Parliament Building. Chairpersons of cluster committees should liaise with their committee clerks to ensure that stakeholders submit their presentations electronically and timely. There are 10 cluster committees, and they are as follows. Cluster 1, Agriculture and Irrigation, Natural Resources and Climate Change, which will be meeting in the cafeteria A. Cluster 2, Health, which will be meeting in the Speaker's boardroom. Cluster 3, Social and Community Affairs and Local Authorities and Rural Development, which will meet in the Speaker's boardroom. Cluster 4, International Relations, Defense and Security, which will meet in the Members' Lounge. Cluster 5, Education, Science and Technology, which will meet in room 257. Cluster 6, Transport and Public Infrastructure, which will meet in room 255. Cluster 7, Public Accounts and Budget, which will meet in room 251. Cluster 8, Legal Affairs and Government Assurance, which will meet in the Members' Lounge. Cluster 9, Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprise and Public Appointments, which will meet in the COP's boardroom. Cluster 10, Industry, Trade and Tourism and Media Communication, which will meet in the Ministerial Lounge. Furthermore, I wish to inform you, honorable members, that it has been usually the case in the past, each member is allocated to one cluster. The criteria used to allocate the members to cluster committees is as follows. All members who belong to 2 local committees have been allocated to 1 cluster committee corresponding with either of their committees. However, this criterion does not apply to members of the Public Accounts Committee who belong to only 1 local committee. As has always been the practice, all chairpersons and vice chairpersons have been allocated to the cluster committees corresponding with the committees they chair. All members of the Health Committee who are not chairpersons and vice chairpersons of other committees have been allocated to Cluster 2, which will address only health-related matters. Similarly, all members of the Education Committee who are neither chairpersons nor vice chairpersons of other committees have been allocated to Cluster 5, which will handle education, science, and technology-related issues. Additionally, all members of the Transport Committee who are not chairpersons or vice chairpersons of other committees have been allocated to Cluster 6, which will handle matters related to transport and public infrastructure. All members of the Public Accounts Committee have been allocated to Cluster 7, which comprises the Public Accounts and Budget Committee. The detailed information regarding membership and specific votes for each cluster will be circulated to the members. Members may also wish to note that all proceedings and the clusters will be beamed live on Parliament television. I therefore request all members to dedicatedly attend cluster committee meetings and ensure that your names are captured in the attendance register. Failure to do so will mean that such members will be subjected to Standing Order 41, Part 3. Honorable members, I thank you for your attention. I now adjourn the House until Monday, 17th March 2025 at 2 p.m. after the cluster committees have... No. Adjournment in us coming back as a plenary, because we're breaking for clusters, we have to state the date that the plenary is going to meet. So as plenary, we're meeting on Monday, 17th March 2025 at 2 p.m. after the cluster committees have scrutinized the budget. House adjourned.
Osaiwala kupanga subscribe ku channel ya AMTV Malawi.